Somewhere in the American Midwest, there stands a church that is not a church anymore because it is part of a new wave of secularism. Non believers are volunteering in the community, building our own community, and purchasing buildings. We pulled down the cross. My own hands helped renovate the chapel so the pews could be dismantled, hence the name.
Free ourselves from this illusion for the good of the world. This delusion, grow beyond, grow beyond, grow beyond, grow beyond. When is it enough? When will we all wake up? So look around and see what's right before your eyes. No control beyond these skies.
Instead of a pretentious preamble, I'll use the literary principle of in media res and cut to the core of the problem. For too many people, it's just not enough to thoroughly eviscerate the fact claims of Christianity into bleeding piles of crucifixion meat on the cold floor of secularism. Because
Belonging is stronger than evidence. I want to say that one more time, like a good preacher.
belonging is indeed stronger than evidence. So our goal is to provide that and then some tools you might not be aware of for a better, more secular future. In 208 CE, a legendary battle took place in the lands that we know as China. It was an age of disillusion, the imperial dynasty in crisis, described in the embellished historical record known as the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. The fracturing Han Empire was embroiled in a desperate struggle for succession, culminating in the epic Battle of Red Cliffs. What am I talking about? This is supposed to be a science education and atheist channel. Why would I, a mere Western barbarian, relate a historical narrative from a world away? Two reasons. Within the tale of this war is a tangential metaphor for resilience and resourcefulness, from which inspiration can be drawn for modern controversies. The second reason is my rampant curiosity so eclectic the YouTube algorithm can scarcely keep up with me, so you all can benefit from my eccentricities. Zhuge Liang made a promise to deliver 100,000 arrows in one day in order to shore up flagging ammunition supplies in the war against the mighty army of the ambitious warlord Cao Cao. How to steal thousands of arrows from a ruthless enemy without losing any more men on his own side. Of course, I'm mispronouncing the names, Western barbarian that I am, but any Chinese person will know the story. Zhuge Liang, on the Allied side, was assigned to solve the problem, which he accomplished one misty morning by sending a flotilla of dummy ships up the river, seemingly to confront the massive enemy fleet. But the ships were stuffed with straw and scarecrow dummies. Thinking the enemy was using the low visibility of the mist to launch an early morning sneak attack, Cao Cao reacted swiftly, firing a massive volley of arrows, pinioning the incoming fleet, which diverted, reversing course back to the Allied force with thousands upon thousands of arrows safely embedded in straw. Cao Cao realized the ruse too late, declaring, according to legend, that the mind is a sharper weapon than any arrow. A fascinating story of resilience, adaptability, and the penchant to exploit the resources of your enemy to shore up your own weaknesses. Bizarrely, There's a metaphor to be made with modern Facebook arguments with science denying pew sitters. And again, when I call someone a pew sitter, I don't mean to be insulting. I mean to be insulting in a way that is motivating and positive. Here again, we have a desperate attempt to deny well established findings in cell biology. Facebook has dueling communities of evolution instructors and deniers. And on a post wondering why a god would give us endogenous retroviruses that have embedded wreckage of their viral DNA inside our own nuclear DNA in a way that is inheritable. Why would that be the case? Especially if that God expects us to believe the rib story, even though Genesis is adapted from Babylonian epics, but that's a vid for another day. So here we have a Dunning Kruger poster child angrily denouncing these viruses, denying their confirmed status as leftovers from evolution inherited from past infections. Because in some cases, they are found to be part of functional DNA. Some of these functions are important. He declares evolution a failure because a leftover of infection can't include functional traits. I was raised surrounded by these people with the implied, classic, false dichotomy. If we don't understand something about evolution, then God wins. Oh. It is a peculiarity of the American church that those who know the least believe themselves more qualified than dedicated professionals by virtue of faithful lies learned from the basement youth pastor of Soggy Bottom's snake handler Pentecostal church. It might work as long as you never ask the question of why governments, industries, and massive universities would invest billions upon billions, decade after decade, into a boondoggle that somehow was based on an evil conspiratorial cabal from the beginning. But that's an idea for another day. If this poster had mustered up the intellectual acumen to stumble into a seventh grade biology class, then it might occur to him how ERVs, including functional elements, thoroughly undermines any possibility of intelligent design of our respective genomes. One of many examples, the human placenta depends upon the ability of cells to fuse into a tissue called the syncytiotrophoblaст. Say that 5 times fast. This tissue is definitely vital for a proper pregnancy, allowing exchange between mom's blood and the fetus. But it's widely concluded that this structure requires the action of a viral envelope protein. It is essential. Personally, my day job supporting a medical laboratory gives me knowledge of similar viruses and the method of attack they use that blends cells together, allowing them to propagate. Yet this mechanism has been appropriated by the ancestors of the mammals in order to build the crown jewel of our reproductive biology. And this is as fatal as Ebola for notions of a planned genome engineered as part of a divine plan. I'll spell it out for those who had to drop out of sixth grade. A designer who builds with a plan in mind could simply give us whatever genes we needed to become whatever they intended us to be, with no need to borrow, steal, or build around and attack from pathogens. These genes would not have a history. They would all simply be our genes. And yes, we know our bodies definitely include genes taken from viruses because sometimes those viruses reemerge, causing modern problems. Proof positive that our plucky proto-mammal ancestors reversed the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune to win their own epic battle against natural enemies. This is exactly what we would expect as the survivors of the war of nature, surviving any way we can with whatever tools are available, completely in line with the outcome of a vast evolutionary history, standing atop deep time in triumph. Still not convinced? Maybe somehow the Bronze Age war god of the ancient Hebrews is playing a very deep game with mammalian genetics. Perhaps somehow this was destined to happen for reasons beyond our comprehension. Maybe our genes are pieces of a cosmic chess game, proceeding as downstream consequences of a fated destiny, fulfilling a divine plan more wondrous and nuanced than anyone in the National Academies of Science dares dream of. But there's another problem. If an intelligent designer wanted us to have ERVs as necessary building blocks to fulfill a master plan, well, then that plan is written on toilet paper. God is taking a dive in this cosmic game of chess because we've known for a while that some ERVs can be functional, but some of those functions will absolutely fuck you up. Schizophrenia, for instance. There's strong evidence that retroviral genetics can contribute to this neuropathology. And there are many uncharitable jokes to be made about the sanity of anyone determined to still believe our chromosomes were handcrafted by a god of love, who sometimes occasionally plugs in defects, just for shits and giggles. Don't do me any favors, Yahweh. Of course, an unguided process explains this perfectly. The schizo genes need to be suppressed. The placental genes are useful and therefore incorporated regularly. Our painful history of triumph and tragedy is written into our every cell with more authenticity than any primitive book at war with its own contradictions. We humans plan and design. We must lean on our own understanding to build a better secular future in the here and now. This pew sitter could join us if he humbled himself enough to learn real biology from people who actually do the fucking work in agricultural, medical, and biotech industries the world over. But I get it. If evolution is true, then the magic is lost, in one sense. The egotistical need to be God's magical snowflake, despite a sea of other Christians who all believed the same thing, can seem far more tempting than the real science of origins. But there are drawbacks to the biblical worldview far beyond and beneath the circle of the earth. So, if you're deconstructing or questioning, I humbly suggest that you resist the urge to turn off critical thinking mode and put your trust in Youth Pastor 1000, but instead continue to learn not only the magic of reality, but other means to rebuild the life you already have. My intelligent design is more than just snark. The eventual plan is to accumulate secular community resources to allow you to build your own meaning, free of falsehoods and denialism. Let he who has an ear to hear get the fuck out of the Bronze Age and build a modern purpose and meaning in the real world, away from Christian nationalism and science denial. So let's end with the beginning of the larger project accumulating resources for deconstruction. The Secular Therapy Project meets a need sharpened by the glut of Christian so called counselors with shaky credentialing mechanisms and ample proselytization. In this space, one must be cautious.
To tell them that they need to cut their ungodly soul ties, tell homosexuals that they're going to be punished by God for being who they are, inform people that they have demons influencing them, tell people with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia that it's against God's wishes for them to seek psychological intervention or take medication, and instead they should pray.
It's hard to overestimate the value of true, evidence based counseling. that will not try to persuade you to adopt or reinforce any false faith beliefs. And I personally know the founder and can speak of his passion for the project. Connect with their network to find the path to your better self. Pews not included.
Day to day, anew, learning of the greatest show on earth. Our biology, a tapestry, the writing in the evolving garden leads us forwards and back to the mother earth. We are one, a living universe. Holders of what will be in our veins. The devonian seas entertain us.
Life's journey through the eons is the greatest show on earth, but this video was a lot of fun. Remember to like and subscribe.